2633, Student Religious Liberties Act of 2013, and the first co-author on here, Senator McDaniel. Welcome to the Education Committee. We're going to yield to you for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity. If you'll indulge me just for a moment, I want to give a little bit of background before I get to the merit of the bill. And I'll try not to bore you. If you have any questions as I go along the way, please stop me. Since the late 1940s, the Supreme Court has embarked on a fairly thorough examination of the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. As part of that examination, they've created an almost incoherent body of law. The district courts are struggling, the appeals courts are struggling, the Supreme Court's even struggling. In fact, most of the splits have been 5-4, the best we've seen is a 6-3. Long story short is this: the confusion is widespread, and it's causing suppression in schools. It's creating a chilling effect on speech. What we're seeing, first and foremost, are letters coming from out of state to Mississippi administrators and others warning them of possible federal lawsuits, when in fact, most of the time, those letters are based with no merit, they're frivolous. But they understand by sending those letters that speech will be suppressed, and that's what we're seeing. I have been reading a number of these Establishment Clause cases for years, and I recognize that many times the petitioner or the plaintiff just so happened to be a school child or a principal that tries to do something. People that were caught in a system of unevenness and a lack of clarity, and the courts ruled in their favor. It was a bit pitiful, though. They had to file a lawsuit, go 3 courts high, and finally get a ruling in their favor because of the confusion in the case law. What this bill does, it clarifies that students do not lose their constitutional rights when they walk into the schoolhouse door. They still have rights, they still have privileges, and the state needs to protect those, not suppress those. In my area, I received a call this past year of a child who wanted to write about his hero, and his hero just happened to be Jesus Christ. That's perfectly acceptable in any classroom setting. I'll get into the bill in a moment, Mr. Chairman. The teacher, however, approached the child and said, "I wish you would change your subject matter." That's a viewpoint discrimination. It's not allowable. He nevertheless did. I went to talk with her. She wasn't being anti-religious. She was afraid. She was afraid of the lawsuits that were being threatened. So here's what the bill does, starting with Section 2. Dealing with student expression. If you'll read that paragraph, that is the gist of the bill that follows the rest of the section. But what it says is that a public school district shall not discriminate against a student or a parent on the basis of a religious viewpoint or religious expression. In other words, to the extent that they allow expression on a subject, they'll respect a religious expression on that subject. And that is a constitutional prerogative. It is perfectly acceptable, and that's why it needs to be codified so there'll be no confusion. Section 3 carries it a step further, dealing with religious expression in classroom assignments. Whether it's artwork, whether it's homework. If the teacher opens up the project, and it really is open-ended, she, as an apparatus of the state, cannot discriminate against the child. Section 4, dealing with the organization of religious groups and activities, it makes it clear that to the extent the school opens its classroom doors for other groups, it must open its classroom doors for religious groups. See you at the poll gatherings and other such assemblies, which again are perfectly constitutional. Likewise, if you look on line 60, it deals with clothing, accessories, and jewelry. For some reason, people have been telling kids they can't wear little crosses around their necks or on bracelets. That is an unconstitutional endorsement of your religion on the part of the state that cannot be allowed, and that's why this needs to be clarified. Section 5 protects the speech in an even different manner. This is the way this section works. And take a look, if you don't mind, beginning with section or line 76 through line 86. And what you'll see is the creation in these school districts of what's called a limited public forum. And we'll ask these districts to provide these forums first under subparagraph A in a manner that does not discriminate against the student's voluntary expression. B, that the speakers that will be chosen will be based on neutral criteria. Now that word is the word that allows this bill to survive constitutional scrutiny. If the school district were to elect these speakers, it might be problematic. As long as they're based on neutral criteria, that is non-religious criteria, then it's perfectly constitutional. Line 82, that goes without saying, these speakers should not be obscene, vulgar, lewd, or indecent. Subparagraph D, and this is another thing that saves the bill from scrutiny. In the event that these speakers are going to address a graduation ceremony or address a football game or whatever the case may be, there will be a disclaimer. And the disclaimer makes it perfectly clear that the speech you're about to hear is not state-sponsored speech. That is the crux of every decision since 1970. What the court has said, they said basically, if the state endorses the speech, prepares the speech, if they basically prepare a prayer, for example, for reading, that state endorsement. What this disclaimer makes clear is that what this child is about to say is not language prepared by the state. This is a provision that will allow it to survive overall for challenge. And what we're asking the school districts to do is to provide a mechanism for these kids to speak their minds. That's what the bill does. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Any questions from members?
I have a question.
Senator Jordan.
Yes, thank you. Does this bill not violate federal law? It does not?
It does not. The bill, very similar language has been challenged already in Texas.
Okay.
And the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals came back in favor of the language. The 11th Circuit likewise did, and the 4th Circuit has. Now, the big split is a split between content and state endorsement. And what most courts are done, they've gone via the state endorsement route. So look at it like this. If the state were to come in and endorse a religious message by preparing a prayer, by telling the child how to pray, by inviting clergy in to tell them how to pray, the courts are very consistent there. The state cannot do that. But the state likewise has to be viewpoint neutral, so it can very well back off and allow free speech to take place. And the limited public forums we're creating here may or may not result in religious speech. But if religious speech is the result of the forum, then that speech would be protected.
Well, I know I taught 33 years, and I've said a prayer every day, all day in the classroom. I just feel that the good Lord heard it. It doesn't have to be out loud, but I certainly was doing some praying in there for myself and the student. I'm for you, 100%. I have no problem with it. I was just curious. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion. Motion, stop suspicion, do pass on 2633. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like.
Yeah.
We're not going to take up 2691, but since y'all are in here, if y'all don't mind, why don't we, where's the order? Why don't you go through the bill? I like to, if y'all don't mind, y'all can leave. I would like to go through the bill just for education purposes.
Can you hear me from here?
Super job.
This is 2691.
The Opportunity Scholarship Bill 2691.
Thank you, my man. Good. Thank you, bro.
Is based on the fact that, again,
If you want a copy of this video, I'll email it to you. You got it, I'd love to. I'll have to get your email address.
We know the research shows us that school choice policies increase graduation rates.
All right, great, great. Absolutely.
92% of our students right now in F schools are on free and reduced lunch. 82% of our students in D schools are on free and reduced lunch. So ultimately 114,000 students are eligible for these scholarships. The scholarships are for students who are attending a D or an F school with a family income level up to 250% of the established poverty limit. They require
Yeah, say something for me.
Lord, God wins in the end.
Very good.
Tell me who you are.
Senator Melanie Sojourner from Natchez. I'm a co-author on the bill.